Ryan, we can't hear you if you're talking.
There, that should be better now. How many different mute buttons can you possibly have? Cool. Thanks, Azim. Do we have anybody else who's new? Excellent. Anybody have any opens? So Azim, were you going to educate us today on where we are with Scorecard?
I can give you guys like a brief update of the progress we made, depending on like maybe you can take from that, and if you guys have more questions and follow-ups, you can I can try and answer those. So what we're doing right now is we are trying to scale scorecards so that we can dump out more data on more and more repositories. So as of right now, we have about 30,000 repository worth of data. And I think that's going to increase soon in the coming few weeks. So we are hoping to hit maybe like 50,000 repositories in the next coming weeks. So the idea is that we can dump out these data in like maybe a BigQuery table, and folks who want to depend on these scorecard data can read from there. And the way we are kind of going about it is we're hoping that we can take these criticality score projects and the highest criticality score projects as what we dump out. So the more critical they are, they'll be included in scorecards. So that's one update I had. We are also working on some other new interesting checks, like we are trying to add checks to figure out whether a repository has a binary artifact present in it. We're also adding some new checks on like frozen dependencies, whether a repository depends on frozen dependencies or they're just doing, like the skull kind of a thing. So yeah, so some of these new checks are coming out, and we are still working on it, and it should be part of our V2, which is coming in like 2-3 weeks now.
So I have a very kind of focused question, but what the heck? Do you record in your outputs when you did the analysis? Because when I look at metricsopenssf.org, it doesn't have a when this was recorded, and I'm wondering if that's because it wasn't in the output from Scorecard.
We actually do record when we did this analysis. Like we used to do this on a daily basis, and now I think we're kind of doing it weekly basis because of number of repositories. But yeah, we do record the day no, that this analysis started, like, or at least the analysis is for this week and things like that. That information should be available.
Gotcha. And you are aware that there's a site called metricsopenssf.org that's bringing in that data. So the more
Yeah,
projects you do, the more they'll have data about projects.
yeah, that's true. I think the only other meeting where I did come across the OpenSSF metrics was probably the I think now it's 7 a.m. so I've stopped attending that meeting because it's too early for me. But yeah, I will probably sync up with Mike from Microsoft again once we have some more data and we have a V2 available.
Great.
I saw someone raise their hand. Maybe I'm not sure if that was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it
it was
was
VJ, but
me.
I think you put it back down. Go ahead, VJ.
Yeah, yeah, just to clarify from foundationally, I read through. I'm still not very clear on what types of software is in scope for this scorecard. If you can go back to the foundationally what the purpose of the project was. I saw the video and I saw all the content. It'd be good to just refresh us why it is there and how it works and what is the value of it for all the open source projects.
Sure. So yeah, I think we are basically targeting like almost any repo. Like so maybe look, let's taking a step back. So I think the idea of scorecards is can we provide some basic checks like automated checks? Like one of the simplest one we have is does this repository even have like a security.md file which tells if there are security vulnerabilities that are found, how do you report it? So there are these basic checks that we go through, and like things which are very obvious that we know need to be fixed in a repository. We kind of call it out and say that, hey, this is how your security posture looks like. So it's kind of like saying, if it's 100, if you get 100% score, that doesn't mean it's 100% secure. But I guess it's trying to say, are you doing anything obviously bad, and can you improve on it? So we are not language or like platform. We are kind of language agnostic, and we basically just look at these obvious things like um, dependency pinning in, let's say, Docker files, or like having these security.md file and some checks like that. Like the other one I was talking about, this binary artifact check. If you're checking in a binary inside your repository, that's probably not a good uh, thing to do. So we call it out and say, hey, look, we found these binary files in your repository. Maybe you should look into that.
So just one follow-up question on that. So you mentioned dependency pinning, frozen dependencies and everything, right? So that does make a technology related. Like, I mean, there are package management system which you can check for, then there can be build tools. You don't have that options, right? So yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So I think we are having some discussions around like how how deeply involved we want to be, in the sense that for example, if it's a Golang, it might be different type of dependencies and things like that. But right now we might just be looking at. I think we are planning to start off with like just basic regex based thing, just to see they're have like some kind of SHA based pinning or things like that. And maybe in the future, depending on when things evolve, we might go into more language specific or platform specific checks.
Thanks.
So a lot more on the process side than on the code zone, like secure way of building it. All that is not in scope at this time.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I think I was.
Yeah, it's a lot more on the process side of how the software is being secured, more than on the let's say hard skills if the software itself is secure, like the code. And, yeah. Any obvious checks, any obvious security, anything that we think can be automatically found out and say that, hey, like this is clearly an obvious flaw in the repository, then yes, we will try to integrate it. A good example is, which is coming up in a few weeks now, is integration with OSV. So if we know that there are open OSV vulnerabilities that are with this repository, then we can call it out and say that, hey, look, this dependency has an open OSV bug, and until that gets patched, you will have a bad scorecard rating.
Is that limited to OSV, or are you planning to include NVD also?
Sorry, what was the other one you said?
National Vulnerability Database, NVD.
And I think we are planning to start off with OSV for now, and we'll see how that integration goes, and we'll probably look into NVD then.
So I'm curious, for the code review check, do you check to see if there's any time between the pull request being submitted and accepted? I've seen pull requests that are accepted in like 30 seconds of being submitted.
Yeah, no, I don't think we look into that. We just see if the repository has a policy for code review, or is it just doing an automated accept thing. But yeah, we don't look into a time thing.
Okay. And for the fuzzing and the SAST checks, you're just looking for OSS fuzz and whether or not they're using CodeQL?
I'm not sure about SAST, but the fuzzing thing, yes, you're right, that we are only looking at the OSS fuzz. Laurent is on the call. Laurent, do you know how we do the SAST checks?
Yeah, the SAST is just looking for whether you're using CodeQL, and we might actually remove this check and replace it by some better checks where for example, we look for some very specific, patterns like deserialization issues or things like that. But we're just starting on this, like with the curl pipe bash pattern that we're working on. But today, yeah, it's pretty. The SAST was just like a proof of concept, but it doesn't do very much.
Okay.
I can sort of comment on that from the CodeQL side here at GitHub. I think it would probably be interesting to add more SAST tools to that check, rather than try and do your own analysis and find your own vulnerabilities. I think the latter will be a lot of effort, and the former will probably be a lot easier.
Yeah, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Then the problem with having more SAST, so we've thought about this. We don't have yet like a full conclusion of what we're going to do. That's the honest answer. But enabling more tools means like users still have to configure the tools, and then different teams want different things from different tools, and so that's kind of the challenge. Just saying that someone is using CodeQL, for example, doesn't really mean anything, because you have different templates and it does different things. Some team might have the standard templates from CodeQL, and some team might be doing different things. So, I mean, I think it's positive that they have some static analysis going on, but it's hard for us to say really anything about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the when we first talked about the scorecards, the aim there really was, I think, to establish whether a project had given that consideration, whether they thought about SAST, and if so, whether they set up one or two or three tools, or one of three tools. And I think the project has started with CodeQL. I think if you detect the use of one of three tools, then that gives you at least an increased confidence that the team have thought about the security posture. And I think that's the goal of the OpenSSF, the scorecard project, right?
Yeah, I do think longer term it needs to detect more tools, because you know, just because you're not using CodeQL doesn't mean you're not doing, static analysis.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I agree that there's many different configurations, but I think there is a qualitative difference in I'm using or not using tools versus I'm not doing anything. Now, if you're running the tool and totally ignoring the results, that's a problem. But I don't know how a tool can detect that.
Yeah, typically the tools will trigger some PRs. I mean, at least Dependabot, we can, for example, check if you have PRs from Dependabot and they have been accepted once in a while. But yeah, otherwise it becomes a little fuzzy. I mean, we would love your input about what tools you think we should integrate, because there's a lot of them, and I'm personally not aware of all of them. And I don't know yet. I haven't really looked at how GitHub integrates tools. Whether I know there's a common format that you use called Sapphire or something, an open source
It's a
format
Sarif.
that tool. Sarif. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks. So maybe. So I don't know yet how we're gonna check all those tools, whether they drop a config.yaml somewhere or.
Yeah. We could just design an API.
But if you have some insight.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We could indeed look for whether any tool has basically commented on your repo, and whether that's CodeQL or Coverity or SonarQube. That doesn't really matter, as we just said. But indeed, we can see whether people have been using the code scanning tool set with that Sarif integration. If that makes sense.
Yeah, not everybody uses that integration or even does pull requests on them, but or at least comments, but that at least would give a hint.
Yeah, just want to add, Lauren. So I can see the code in your scorecard for Sonar Cloud. So is it something you're currently not using, or you're planning to remove it from the tool, or is there something?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
In your scorecard code, I can see the Sonar Cloud related code, like in the SAST. So is it something you're planning to remove?
Well, we're not planning to remove it. We'd like to have more tools, but
Okay.
I think if we want to have better, we don't really know what all the tools, what kind of checks they are making, and so it's a little bit hard to keep track of it. So as I think David and mentioned, having it is a good first step, but later I guess we would like to have some ready-made configurations, maybe categorized by the sort of checks that the tools make, but maybe further down the line.
Yeah.
But we don't plan.
Yeah, they provide open API for open project. Like you can check for quality profiles and rules activated and the open findings and the trends. So you can even have a better understanding if they are actually using the static analysis or they just scan it for a namesake, right? But again, I completely agree with David's point. Like having something is better than nothing, right? Like so. But if you want to go a bit more deeper and understand more about project, there are APIs available. You can fetch more data. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
So I mean, you should be able to add a few Dast tools as well fairly easily, either whether you look at issues raised or particular config files.
Yes, correct. So I would love it if some of you could just create issues on the scorecard and tell us like what are the tools that you think would be useful and that we're missing, because that would help. Like there's so many tools, I'm honestly not sure which one we're going to start with. So just having an idea of what the community thinks would be useful would be super helpful.
Yeah,
But you don't want to read our minds, Lauren.
No, I don't have that capability yet.
Yeah, I actually did a study a couple years ago. I'm struggling to find it now about what tools were most common in the CI best practices badge. I remember that Coverity was the top most common tool that was being
So there's also a question that, sorry to interrupt, there's also a question, a concern that was raised by people saying that if we look for certain tools, we're basically saying that those tools are good and we're doing some free marketing for them. And we have to be careful about not singling out Coverity because they are most used today.
If you only detected Coverity, I completely agree. If you detect Coverity and Fortify and a whole bunch of other tools, then I think that objection goes away. I mean, the goal isn't to detect whether or not they use Coverity. The goal is to detect whether or not they're using a certain class of tool.
And you can include some comment to say if there are any other tools that we should be detecting, please raise an issue here or whatever. So yeah, as long as there's a straightforward way for anyone, whether it's a company or an open source tool, to get registered, then I don't see that as a problem.
Yeah, right. I think our only preference is that anybody who wants to be there has a chance to.
Right, yeah, and I don't know of any. Yeah, and I don't know of anybody who already does this kind of detection. Therefore, having Scorecard be able to detect that's a valid, useful thing to do. I guess I probably should Google and see whether or not somebody already does this, but I don't think so.
I don't know of anyone.
Yeah, so look in various and sundry plausible CI formats, Travis's format, GitHub Actions, that sort of thing, and then look for likely tools, and then you can at least if you do a decent job and tell everybody how to add to it, you're on your way.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly reiterate Lauren's point of if you guys have any ideas about the text, please do make issues, because right now we are I think we are looking more into the how to increase the breadth of scorecards, like how do you get more data, how can we add more checks, but like each of these checks probably needs more better quality, more better thought. So yeah, we would love to hear from the community and see how this can help, like how we can make scorecards more useful. So,
Makes sense, Azim. Azim, Lauren, do you have anything else that you want to add on scorecard?
No, I think it's fine on my end.
yeah, I'm good too.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing what you're up to with that. David, I wanted to ask, there's lots of stuff going on with the executive order these days. Can you talk about what Linux Foundation / OpenSSF are currently doing? Since I know there's lots of information flying around rapidly and quickly.
Oh, the cheeky answer would just tell you no, but I actually can tell you some things. Let's see here. So let me write down U.S. Executive Order.
Yep.
David W. All right. Let's see here. So so the U.S. sent out an executive order on cybersecurity. I wrote up they had 5 categories. NIST created a request for information on 5 categories. I wrote up 5 papers, 1 for each. And I mentioned OpenSSF on all of them. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this group specifically. It'd be kind of surprising if I hadn't. They did invite me back to talk about the defining critical software. I have some concerns about how they're thinking about defining critical software, but the work is still going on.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff's going on. A lot of people are asking me questions and trying to chat and learn more, and that's all good. It's a little tiring. My boss's boss is Jim Zemlin, president of Linux Foundation. He asked me to come up with a list of what might be, what would you like to be, what would you like funded if you wanted to ask for a serious amount of money. He wanted me to not release that until he had a chance to review it, and he hasn't had a chance to review it yet, so I can't share the details. Sure. But I can tell you that I started with the OpenSSF wish list, some other folks. I made some stabs about what I thought they might cost. That doesn't mean that, shockingly, I'm not omniscient, so I can be wrong about prediction in the future. But that's what one of the things I've been trying to do. So just to kind of clarify, this is basically an effort to try to go out and request larger sums of money by starting at the top. There is no guarantee that any of this stuff will get funded. I want to make that clear. So please don't bet your life on this sort of stuff. But we're hoping to come up with a nice big laundry list in tens of millions of dollars. Now, as I said, do not base your life upon whether or not that actually works. Think of this as an effort to do big fundraising.
Yep.
Will it work? Don't know. You miss all the shots you don't take.
Absolutely.
So, but I think Jim and I are very much in agreement on the basic pitch, which is, hey, yes, it's a lot of money but not for a government. Considering the ecosystems that the open source runs, these are actually relatively small investments. So we'll see if that pitch actually works. But I think it has the advantage of being actually true. So we'll see how that works.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised Jim hasn't reviewed it. He's still trying to figure out how to make 2021 the year of the Linux desktop. So,
that's not fair. He is just interested in trying to make things work and fix problems as he sees them.
Absolutely.
But fixing problems is a target-rich environment, and he's just. He had a board meeting last week. There's another big thing he's trying to do. So it's and actually, to be honest, I've been trying to do this and other things, and I'm just getting exhausted. So
No doubt. Totally understand. Excellent. And what's going on with FlawFinder?
Okay, so just FYI, since this is the tool working group, this is actually not funded by the Linux Foundation. This is work that I've been doing in my copious spare time, but I wrote a little tool years ago that analyzes C and C++ code. It's a simple security-focused source code static analyzer for C and C++ code. It's actually written in Python. Put on a new release. It now supports Oasis Serif as an output format, and it has better support cross-platform. It worked across everybody before, but now it should be even more wunderbar. If you use it, enjoy.
You have any plans to integrate it with GitHub Code Scanning?
Sure. Send me pull requests.
I mean, it sounds like if output Serif, you've already done all of the work. That is the integration, but what we'd need to do would be to create an action so that it's easy for anybody to run it and put a blob in the marketplace for it.
Right.
GitHub doesn't really... GitHub hasn't created any of those for other open source projects itself, so I don't think we can maintain it, but it sounds like you've done 90% of the work, because there's a reason we chose Serif as the interchange format and have been pushing all the other vendors to move on to that. It's to get to this point where by supporting that, it's trivial to integrate with anything else.
I might, but to be honest, right now, my cup is full, so I'm gonna bake. I mean, to be fair, the Serif stuff, the Serif integration was done by others too. So I am happy to review proposals. I will occasionally make improvements, and I might do that one, but it's going to be a while if you wait for me.
Cool. That makes a ton of sense. If it's other people that wrote the Serif integration, it might well be that they already have on their agenda to integrate with other Serif consuming result display formats. So.
Yeah, that was actually some Microsoft work, so it would be unsurprising if GitHub integration is actually in their view. But I can at least put a request on Git for the proposal and saying, hey, we'd love to see a GitHub integration, and we'll see if they buy that one off.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, the Microsoft folks are all moving. More and more Microsoft development happens on GitHub now. So they have a load of requirements that any tools that they're using as part of the Microsoft security tool chain end up compatible with GitHub. So they almost certainly have that on their list.
Yep.
All right, so I'd love to have a GitHub integrations, and GitHub, like Serif, if you're planning to create a GitHub, what do you call them? It's a GitHub Actions integration.
Yeah, I've included the link in the notes for today's meeting.
Thanks, Bas.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's for Sonar Cloud specifically, though, isn't it?
Sorry, what is?
What in the chat am I supposed to be looking at for GitHub Actions integration?
Oh no, I made it. I put it in the notes for the meeting.
Oh, whoops. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry. Okay. All right, and I will create an issue on FlawFinder, which others can then do something glorious about.
Cool.
Okay. Excellent. It looks like Matt dropped off. I wanted to ask him about some of the stuff he put in the notes from last week, but I guess that will have to wait. Does anybody else have any opens?
Brian, I have one, which is
Yeah,
if there's time available at the next meeting in 2 weeks, there's a member of the team at IQT Labs, George Sinowski, that is willing and interested to present our survey results of software developers and data scientists and their code reuse habits, their security-related pre-installation code reuse beliefs and behaviors. And we want this sort of survey to inform tool development. So it's not particularly tied to any one tool, but for people who are interested in, especially pre-installation package vetting behaviors, my colleague George would be glad to do a presentation. So,
okay. How long?
Up to you. We're glad to be flexible, but 15 to 20 minutes would probably be good enough to go from like motivation to final results.
Okay, sure, sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody have any more opens? Okay, well then I shall call the meeting for today, and everybody can have 25 minutes back. I'm sure David Wheeler knows what to do with it.
Take a nap.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.